ongoing, just as
Wir
the
rufen
risk of a
alle
regional
Parteien dazu auf, die
conflagration.
Verhandlungen
We
über einen
call upon
Waffenstillstand
all
und die Befreiung der
parties
Geiseln
involved to continue
unverzüglich fortzusetzen.
negotiations immediately,
Die
negotiations on a
katastrophale
ceasefire and the
humanitäre Lage in
liberation
Gaza
of
und der
hostages.
mangelnde Schutz von
The
Zivilisten und
catastrophic
humanitären
humanitarian
Helfern
situation in Gaza and the
besorgt
lack of
mich zutiefst.
protection
Hier muss
for
Israel
civilians and
mehr tun.
humanitarian aid workers is something that deeply
Nicht nur in
worries
diesen
me.
außen- und
Israel needs to do
sicherheitspolitischen
more.
Fragen stimmen sich unsere Regierungen eng
We
miteinander ab.
coordinate
Uns
closely,
ist es auch wichtig,
not
die
only
Beziehung
in
zwischen der
terms of
Europäischen
security
Union und
policy, it is also
Großbritannien
important to
weiterzuentwickeln.
further develop relations
Ich freue
between
mich
the
über die
European
Ankündigung
Union
von
and
Keir
the
Starmer,
United Kingdom.
dass er einen
I am
Neustart im
happy about
Verhältnis
the
zur Europäischen
announcement by
Union
Keir
suchen
Starmer
wird.
to
Diese
seek a
ausgestreckte
reset
Hand
in the
wollen
relations
wir
to the
ergreifen.
European Union. We want
Das
to
Vereinigte
take
Königreich war schon
this
immer
hand which
ein
has reached out
unverzichtbarer
to
Teil bei der
us.
Lösung
The
der
UK has
großen Fragen,
always been an
die ganz Europa
indispensable partner
betreffen.
when it comes to solving
Daran
the
hat sich
big
nach dem
issues
Abschied aus der
affecting
EU
all of Europe,
nichts
and
geändert.
nothing has changed
Mit dem
after the UK
Austrittsabkommen, dem
left the
Nordirland-Protokoll,
European
den
Union.
umfassenden Handels-
With
und
the withdrawal
Kooperationsabkommen
agreement, the
sowie dem
protocol in
Windsor
Ireland and
Framework
Northern
besteht jetzt ein
Ireland, the
verlässlicher rechtlicher Rahmen für unsere Beziehungen,
trade and
den es
cooperation
jetzt
agreement and the
vollständig
Windsor framework.
umzusetzen
We
gilt.
have a reliable legal
Ein
framework
letzter Punkt
for
ist
our
mir wichtig.
relations that needs to be
Die
fully
Kontakte zwischen unseren
implemented.
Gesellschaften,
One last point is
zwischen
important to
Deutschen und
me. The
Briten,
contacts between our societies, between Germans
sind nach dem Brexit und
and
wegen der
people in the
Covid-19-Pandemie
UK
massiv
have
zurückgegangen.
declined massively
Das
after
wollen wir ändern.
Brexit and
Wer
the
sich gut kennt,
COVID-19
versteht
pandemic.
sich
We
auch
want to
besser.
change that because if you
Keir
know
Starmer
each
und
other
ich sehen
well,
das sehr
you
ähnlich.
understand each other
Und deshalb
better.
wollen wir auch auf
We
dieser Ebene
share
den Austausch zwischen
similar
Deutschland
views
und
on this, and this is
Großbritannien
why
weiter
we want
intensivieren.
to intensify the
Mr. Prime
exchanges
Minister,
between
welcome
Germany
to
and the
Berlin.
UK. Mr. Prime Minister, welcome to Berlin.
Thank you very much. Can I first express my sincere condolences for the shocking attack in Solingen last week? Our country knows what it's like to suffer such senseless and despicable acts, and our thoughts are with all the families affected by this terrible event. And Ola, thank you. It's fantastic to be here with you in Berlin. Not, alas, my first visit here as Prime Minister. Football, as it turns out, decided to visit its second home in Spain this term when I was last here. But anyway, it's still an incredible experience and a showcase for the fantastic hospitality of this great nation. So thank you for hosting yet another episode in English footballing trauma. I've been through a lot. Anyway, I'm delighted to be back at this moment of opportunity for our two countries. Olaf, on every occasion that we've met, we've talked about our ambitions for the future, our values of security, prosperity and respect, and our shared determination to harness the power of government for the service of working people. And that is what we are doing today. A new UK-Germany treaty, a once-in-a-generation chance to deliver for working people in Britain and in Germany. A new agreement, a testament to the depth and potential of our relationship, with deeper links on science, technology, development, people, business, culture, a boost to our trading relations. Germany, of course, already the UK's second largest trading partner in the world, and through that, a chance to create jobs here and in the United Kingdom, and deliver that most precious of goods for both our countries, economic growth. Let me be clear, growth is the #1 mission of my government, and what we understand clearly is that building relationships with our partners here in Germany and across Europe is vital to achieving it. That is what our agreement today represents, the chance that we have. We will also deepen cooperation on shared social challenges, for example, on illegal immigration, because we cannot smash the smuggler gangs who perpetrate this vile trade without the help of our partners. And I'm really glad that we had substantive discussions today about how we tackle the smuggling gangs and agreed to develop a joint action plan to tackle illegal migration. We will also renew our commitment to the Calais Group, enhance our intelligence sharing on organised immigration crime, but also increase collaboration on tackling climate change an important goal for the planet, of course, for greater energy security, but also for tackling the drivers of challenges like illegal migration at source. And finally, at the heart of this treaty will be a new defence agreement, an agreement that builds upon our already formidable defence cooperation, but which expands that relationship to face the threats of a volatile world together. That, of course, means a shared resolve to stand up for the security of our people and the wider European continent. And that begins with our unyielding support for Ukraine. And we discussed that in some detail today. Because as Europe's largest contributors to Ukraine's war efforts, and as the nations with the highest defence expenditure among the European countries in NATO, we know only too well the debt we owe to the Ukrainian people, who fight not just to defend themselves, but for the people and all the people across Europe. So today, we affirmed our commitment to stand with Ukraine for as long as it takes. We also share a common commitment to resolve the crisis in the Middle East, as you've just referenced. And we agree on Israel's right to self-defence in compliance with international humanitarian law, the need for de-escalation across the region, and for restraint and caution to be exercised, unfettered humanitarian access into Gaza, agreement to a ceasefire and release of all hostages, and the importance of working together towards a political solution based on the creation of a Palestinian state alongside a safe and secure Israel. The only way to provide long-term peace and security for both Israelis and Palestinians. Now that, of course, is not an easy goal, but it is one that we are committed to pursuing together because, as today shows, Britain can advance its interests much more effectively when we stand with our friends and partners. This treaty is part of a wider reset, grounded in a new spirit of cooperation, with our shared understanding that this will be developed at pace and that we hope to have agreed it by the end of the year. A Britain reconnected, resetting our relationship, rediscovering our common interests, delivering for working people. Britain and Germany already have an incredible relationship. We invest billions in each other's countries. Thousands and thousands of jobs are supported through trade. And every year, millions of people travel between our two countries, exchanging ideas, collaborating, creating and connecting. But today, we build on that. A bright new future for UK-German relations. Two great countries brought closer together than ever before. The strongest strategic partners in Europe and on the world stage. Thank you so much for hosting us here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As usual, we have four questions, two questions side. The first question goes to Beth Rigby from Sky.
Thank you, Beth Rigby, Sky News. Prime Minister, PM after PM has come to Berlin asking for a better deal, better trade deal, only to fail. You've ruled out rejoining the EU, the single market or customs union, but you know you'll have to make concessions for a better deal. Do you acknowledge that? And specifically, will you allow freedom of movement for young Germans? And Chancellor, our new Prime Minister is talking about a once-in-a-generation reset between UK and Europe. But does Berlin and your partners in Brussels have real appetite for the reset the Prime Minister is pledging? Can the UK really expect to cherry-pick better trade terms outside of the European Union? And is youth mobility something that might materially shift the dial for you? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Beth. Obviously, today is predominantly about the bilateral treaty that we will agree at pace, and we've talked about the substance of that today. And that will be ambitious, it will be wide-ranging, covering trade, the economy, defence and many other issues. And the fact that we've agreed the substance, the ambition and the pace of it today, I think, is very significant for both the UK and for Germany. And that's why I say it's a once-in-a-generation opportunity to take something of that order forward for both of our countries. When it comes to the wider reset with Europe, I'm absolutely clear that we do want a reset. I've been able to repeat that here today, a reset with Europe, a reset with the EU. That does not mean reversing Brexit or re-entering the single market or the customs union, but it does mean a closer relationship on a number of fronts, including the economy, including defence, including exchanges. But we do not have plans for the youth mobility scheme, but we do have plans for a closer relationship between us and the EU as part of that wide set. So the position today is exactly as it was before the election, but what we've been able to do today is to move that forward with the bilateral treaty agreement and to reiterate our desire to reset the relationships with the EU. Thank you.
Ich habe nicht viel zu ergänzen. Aus meiner Sicht geht es darum, dass wir gute Beziehungen schaffen zwischen der Europäischen Union und Großbritannien. Das kann jeden Tag besser werden. Und alle haben ein Interesse daran. Die historische Entscheidung in Großbritannien ist gefallen. Großbritannien hat die Europäische Union verlassen. Aber wir sind Freunde, wir leben auf einem Kontinent. Und aus unserer Perspektive und wir finden, dass es deshalb auch wirklich guten Anlass gibt, alles dafür zu tun, dass die Beziehungen zwischen unseren beiden Ländern, aber eben auch zwischen der Europäischen Union und Großbritannien so gut wie möglich sind.
Herr Premierminister, Herr Bundeskanzler, Sie haben beide eben die Hilfe für die Ukraine noch mal beteuert. Es gibt aber Zweifel, ob dieses Finanzinstrument von G7 und der EU rechtzeitig für die Ukraine zur Verfügung steht, um Waffen zu kaufen. Deswegen ganz konkret die Frage an Sie beide. Werden diese Windfall Profits aus den Frozen Russian Assets noch in diesem Jahr genutzt werden können, um der Ukraine einen Kredit über 50 Milliarden Dollar zu geben? Und wie groß ist eigentlich der Anteil des Kredits, den Großbritannien und auch Deutschland zusteuern? And Prime Minister, second question for you. Germany will deploy American mid-range weapons from 2026 onwards, till Germany, France and Britain have developed own capacities in this field. How do you bridge the capability gap in this field, also with American weapons? Thank you.
I will start. Okay. Es ist so, dass wir uns in Napoleon beim G7-Treffen verständigt haben, dass wir eine große Unterstützung der Ukraine organisieren wollen durch einen 50 Milliarden Kredit, den wir aus den Erträgen der eingefrorenen russischen Zentralbank refinanzieren. Das ist eine große Anstrengung, aber es ist etwas, das möglich ist und das wir jetzt schnell und zügig voranbringen wollen. Es wird intensiv an den technischen Voraussetzungen gearbeitet. Ich habe auch mit der Präsidentin der Europäischen Kommission darüber gesprochen, was den Anteil Europas, das vielleicht in diesem Fall ja auch Deutschland betrifft und wie wir das machen. Dort sind alle sehr weit fortgeschritten. Wir stimmen das mit unseren amerikanischen Freunden ab, sodass das auch zu ihren Regeln und Regularien passt. Und das Gleiche gilt dann natürlich für die Einbeziehung all derjenigen, die auch noch als Teil unserer G7-Entscheidung einen Beitrag leisten wollen. Großbritannien, Kanada und Japan und natürlich freuen wir uns, wenn dann
Canada
später
and
noch
Japan,
mehr
and of
mitmachen.
course we
Das
are
ist die
happy if
Entwicklung.
others chip in and
Und
join.
in dem Sinne
These are the developments, and in this sense,
sind wir bei der Arbeit
in this regard, we're
und glauben,
at
dass wir bald
work,
die
and
technischen
we hope that
Voraussetzungen
we have
geklärt
the
haben können.
technical preconditions ready for it to happen.
Thank you very much. In terms of the wider question about capability, obviously the UK, along with Germany, along with key allies, does already provide support and weaponry, particularly in relation to the conflict in Ukraine, which is where we've been working so closely together. So far as the UK is concerned, there's been no change of position, no new decisions made in relation to capability. And the contribution we make is in accordance and consistent with the contribution that was made before the election, because there's been a high degree of consensus, political consensus, in the UK in relation to that. As you would expect, Ukraine was a part of our discussion here this morning as we looked at the challenges ahead, and our resolve is, as ever, to stand shoulder to shoulder with Ukraine to provide the support that it needs for as long as it needs. Thank you.
Next question comes from Sorry,
Well, look, I mean, I'm not sure there's much I can add to what the Chancellor already said.
Thank you, Chris McKeon, Press Association. Following on the subject of Ukraine and weapons and long-range weapons, firstly, Prime Minister, is it the case that it is American objections that are preventing the use of Storm Shadow missiles to target, to hit targets in Russia? And what discussions have you had with the Chancellor on lifting restrictions on the use of weapons in Russia? And Chancellor, is now the time to consider lifting restrictions on the use of German-supplied weapons against Russian targets, particularly supplying F-16 jets and Taurus missiles?
Let me just address that. Obviously, and as you know, we have been providing support and weaponry to Ukraine consistent with the approach of other key allies, including Germany. We supported the approach and the framework put forward by the previous government in the United Kingdom when we were in opposition, and we are acting consistently with that in government, and that's why I'm very clear that no new or different decisions have been made. I'm not going to get into tactical questions about the use of weapons for very obvious reasons, but no new decisions have been taken. But Ukraine is, of course, a constant theme of discussion between NATO allies, and we all recognise the need to stand by Ukraine for as long as it takes, and we've renewed that commitment here this morning.
Deutschland ist einer der ganz großen Unterstützer der Ukraine. In Europa leisten wir die meiste militärische Unterstützung. Und das werden wir auch fortsetzen. Ich habe darüber berichtet. Diese Unterstützung wird noch unterstützt durch diese Unterstützung wird noch ergänzt durch den 50 Milliarden Euro Kredit, den wir vorbereitet haben als G7 und an dem wir jetzt hart arbeiten. Was die Waffenlieferung betrifft, gibt es keine neuen Entscheidungen aus Deutschland.
Vielen Dank, Herr Premierminister, Herr Bundeskanzler.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. The knife-stabbing attacks in Solingen have led to a debate in Germany as to how to limit irregular migration. You just announced that there will be a new action plan between the UK and Germany on this topic. Which tangible measures are contained in this action plan? And Prime Minister, what are the recommendations to the Chancellor based on your own experiences in dealing with knife-stabbing attacks in Solingen? And Mr. Chancellor, the opposition leader Friedrich Merz offered to support laws, draft bills without the support of your coalition partners. This would infringe upon the coalition treaty. Are you categorically against this because of that reason?
Zunächst mal, wir haben uns intensiv auch über den furchtbaren Anschlag in Solingen unterhalten. Und ich bin sehr dankbar für die Solidarität, die mir in unserem persönlichen Gespräch zum Ausdruck gebracht hat und das sei hier nochmal wiederholt hat. Das ist wirklich furchtbar, was dort passiert ist. Und ich werde die Gespräche, die ich mit denjenigen, die sofort auf dem Platz waren und geholfen haben, nicht vergessen, die immer noch mit ihren Gefühlen kämpfen.
suffering and going through difficult emotions because
furchtbare Situation gewesen ist, die um ihr Leben gekämpft haben, um deren Leben sie gekämpft haben. Und wir wissen, 3 sind gestorben.
We know 3 people have lost their lives in this terrible attack. This terrible murderous attack cost
8 weitere Opfer befinden sich weiterhin im Krankenhaus.
And further victims continue to be hospitalized. We mourn the victim and we wish a speedy and comprehensive recovery to those who have been injured. We can't go back to daily business after this attack. We cannot do that. We will not do that. We will draw the necessary lessons. It is clear.
Wir setzen all unsere Bemühungen fort, irreguläre Migration nach Deutschland weiter zu begrenzen. Nach allem, was jetzt bekannt ist, hätte sich der Attentäter von Solingen gar nicht mehr in Deutschland befinden dürfen.
The perpetrator of Solingen was supposed to have left Germany already. He was supposed to be deported to Bulgaria. We are going to closely investigate why this did not happen, why authorities did not deport him, and this needs to change so that such terrible attacks don't happen again. In order to contain irregular migration, the government,
in den vergangenen 12 Monaten eine ganze Reihe von weitreichenden Maßnahmen auf den Weg gebracht, unter anderem das Rückführungsverbesserungsgesetz. Damit sind rechtliche und bürokratische Hürden beiseite geräumt worden, die den zuständigen Behörden bei Abschiebung bislang im Wege gestanden haben. So hat die Polizei bei der Suche nach Personen, die zur Rückführung bestimmt sind, mehr Befugnisse. Sie darf zum Beispiel auf der Suche nach Personen die gesamte Unterkunft betreten. Personen dürfen auch deutlich länger in Abschiebegewahrsam genommen werden und Asylbewerber erhalten deutlich länger reduzierte Leistung. Gleichzeitig haben wir die Kontrollen an den deutschen Grenzen massiv ausgeweitet und werden sie so lange fortsetzen, wie das möglich ist. All diese Entscheidungen zeigen Wirkung. Die Zahl derer, die irregulär nach Deutschland kommen, hat sich in diesem Jahr um mehr als ein Fünftel verringert. Die Zahl der Abschiebungen im ersten Halbjahr hat im Vergleich zum Vorjahr um mehr als ein Viertel, im Vergleich zu 2021 sogar um 60% zugenommen.
The number of people deported has increased by 60%.
Sind die Zahlen längst noch nicht so, wie sich das die Bürgerinnen und Bürger erwarten und wie ich mir das wünsche. Deshalb wird die Bundesregierung ihre Bemühungen fortsetzen, die irreguläre Migration weiter zu begrenzen. Dazu gehören auch neue gesetzliche Maßnahmen, die wir in der Bundesregierung seit dem Wochenende intensiv miteinander abstimmen. Dazu zählen insbesondere Verschärfung des Waffenrechts, Maßnahmen gegen gewaltbereiten Islamismus und aufenthaltsrechtliche Maßnahmen, vor allem um Rückführungen noch weiter zu erleichtern. Es ist ein gutes Signal, wenn die größte Oppositionspartei in einer solchen, für unser Land wichtigen Frage ihre Zusammenarbeit in Aussicht gestellt hat. Diese Bereitschaft ist willkommen. Die Bundesregierung wird die nun nötigen Entscheidungen sehr zeitnah mit Vertretern der Länder und von CDU, CSU eingehend erörtern, genauso wie Vorschläge, die aus diesen Reihen eingebracht werden. Die Bundesinnenministerin wird deshalb sehr zügig jeweils einen Vertreter des Vorsitzes und Co-Vorsitzes der Ministerpräsidentenkonferenz, Vertreter der größten Oppositionspartei und involvierte Bundesressorts zu vertraulichen und zielgerichteten Gesprächen über diese Frage einladen. Das Ziel dieser gemeinsamen Anstrengung ist klar, die irreguläre Migration nach Deutschland weiter zu verringern. Zugleich, das wissen wir alle, bleibt Deutschland auf legale Zuwanderung von Arbeitskräften angewiesen. Rund 20 Millionen Bürgerinnen und Bürger mit Migrationsgeschichte tragen heute zu Deutschlands Wohlstand bei. Sie zahlen Steuern und Sozialabgaben. Sie sind gut integriert als Arbeitskollegen, Nachbarn und Klassenkameraden. Das ist eine Erfolgsgeschichte, auf die unser Land stolz sein kann. Die Koalition hat mit der Modernisierung der Regelung zu Arbeitskräften und ihrer Zuwanderung und zur Staatsangehörigkeit die notwendigen Grundlagen dafür geschaffen.
nationality, the federal government has made a big effort. The state has to contain irregular immigration so as to not to overburden the country. This can and must succeed without questioning our basic law and also international treaties. We owe this to the victims of Solingen.
Thank you very much. In relation to the terrible attacks here in Germany, I just reiterate our thoughts are with all of the victims and their families in what is a very difficult set of circumstances. On the wider question of irregular migration and the particular issue that we have in the UK of small boats crossing the Channel, I have long said before the election that I thought the Rwanda scheme was a gimmick, which is why we stood it down immediately. But nonetheless, it is very important that we take back control of our borders. I have long been convinced that the best way, the most effective way to do that is to take down the gangs that are running the vile trade of putting people in dangerous situations across Europe and across the Channel. And I said before the election that I would invest political capital in making sure we could work more effectively with our partners in taking down those gangs. And that's why I'm very pleased today that we've had a substantive discussion, agreed to a joint action plan, and that will, as you would expect, deal with issues like data sharing, intelligence sharing, what we can do on joint operations, because that is the way to take effective action in relation to the vile trade that sits beneath irregular migration across Europe, and in particular sits beneath the vile trade of putting people into small boats across the Channel. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your attention. This concludes our press conference. Ending in a trustful partnership which is based on shared values and reliable friendship. We are going to foster and promote this cooperation for the benefit of our peoples, for the benefit of Europe and security and the transatlantic sphere.
Wir wollen es dabei nicht bei Bekenntnissen belassen, sondern unsere Beziehung auf eine ganz neue Grundlage stellen. In den kommenden Monaten werden wir gemeinsam auf einen Vertrag hinarbeiten, der die ganze Bandbreite unserer Beziehung reflektiert. Einen solchen Vertrag hat es zwischen Deutschland und dem Vereinigten Königreich noch nicht gegeben. Die Zusammenarbeit unserer beiden Regierungen wollen wir auch durch Regierungskonsultationen vertiefen, die wir in ganz naher Zukunft abhalten werden. Schon heute stehen wir uns in der täglichen Regierungsarbeit eng und vertrauensvoll miteinander ab. All das zeigt, Deutschland und Großbritannien sind besondere Partner. Gemeinsam wollen wir den europäischen Pfeiler in der NATO stärken. Dabei wird eine engere sicherheitspolitische Zusammenarbeit auch eine wichtige Rolle spielen. Die Situation in der Ukraine war auch ein Thema, das uns heute beschäftigt hat. Deutschland und Großbritannien stehen fest an der Seite der Ukraine. Das sage ich ausdrücklich auch mit Blick darauf, dass zuletzt versucht worden ist, in diesem Engagement Zweifel zu sehen. Wir werden unsere finanzielle, wirtschaftliche, politische und auch militärische Unterstützung fortsetzen, solange das notwendig ist. Der Haushaltsentwurf steht für nächstes Jahr und wird 4 Milliarden Euro an bilateraler Hilfe für die Ukraine vorsehen. Zusätzlich stellen wir der Ukraine gemeinsam mit den G7-Staaten einen 50 Milliarden Kredit zur Verfügung, um eine verlässliche finanzielle Unterstützung zu gewährleisten. Dafür nutzen wir auch Windfall Profits aus eingefrorenen Zentralbankvermögen Russlands. Zutiefst beunruhigt blicken wir auf die Lage im Nahen Osten und die Eskalation in der Region.
प्रमोशन मिला। Yes, who is the new CEO?
लोग जो 60 में बनते हैं तुम 40 में बन गए हो।
ब्रो, कहीं 60 की बीमारियां भी 40 में ना आ जाए। हाँ?
इतनी फिक्र क्यों? जब रोज का खाना बने हेल्दी और विद सफोला गोल्ड, जो लाइट तो है ही, प्लस इसमें है पावर ऑफ 3। सफोला गोल्ड, रोज का हेल्दी स्टेप।
I'm here in London. It is a bustling Monday morning, and I'm about to go meet one of the titans of banking. Hello.
You guys love these meet and greet
Yes,
things.
we
Like,
do.
how are you?
It's good to have a good handshake.
Have we ever met? Like,
I feel like I know you because I've seen you so many times.
vice versa.
Jamie Dimon is an institution. Since 2005, he's been the head of the world's biggest bank, JP Chase. He's widely seen as a rock in the storms of 21st century finance, and even, at times, a kind of guardian of the US and global economy.
He's a leader, and he understands the importance of stepping up at a time where there's great uncertainty.
This country is a lot better off because Jamie Dimon has been running JP Morgan.
He's also a highly visible figurehead in the banking world, always in demand for media appearances, where he reliably delivers hot takes on the current thing.
I could care less what Bitcoin trades for, how it trades, why it trades, who trades it. If you're stupid enough to buy it, you'll pay the price for it one day.
Dimon always seems to be ready with blunt insight into the events of the moment. But I wanted to zoom out and talk about his broader philosophy, to learn about the principles that guide the decision-making of this incredibly influential person, a family man from Queens who's at least as invested in being a dad and a grandpa as he is in shaping the global economy.
So you're on the road how often?
I say, actually, we checked last year, it was like 120 nights or something like that. But some of it is COVID catch-up. I feel like I need to visit people.
Right.
And all these conferences are on again. And of course, I'm here. I do more than just this conference. So.
Right. Do you have any travel hacks?
What does that mean?
You know, ways to make your life easier. Yes.
Well, I try. When I land, when I exercise, when I eat, when I don't get tortured by people. You have a lot of folks from Bloomberg here. Uh-huh.
This is the Jamie Dimon treatment.
Exactly. So how long have you been at Bloomberg?
I have been at Bloomberg 13 years.
Where are you from?
I'm from Hawaii originally.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
And married?
Married.
Children?
4 kids.
Holy moly.
Yeah. How do you do it?
What do you mean?
How did you juggle it all?
I pretty much had a binary life. I worked and family. So you didn't see me in black ties and red carpets and very rare stuff like that. So big family life.
I know. I've heard you're a family man.
Yeah.
How old are your daughters now?
38, 36, 34, and 7 grandkids, 6 girls, and finally a boy.
Do you babysit?
Yeah. My wife does more than I do, but I do. We do it together. They come over, sleepovers, and all that kind of stuff.
Any parenting advice?
Just love them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what do you like to do with your daughters now?
Everything. We barbecue, we eat, we go to restaurants, we travel, we listen to music, we do wine. I love my son-in-laws.
It's quite the test going to meet Jamie Dimon as your future father-in-law.
They have no problem.
I'd be shaking in my
God
boots.
knows if I ever say something where I'm wrong, they correct me just like they like finding me wrong about something.
If that sounds modest, well, there's nothing modest about Dimon's professional life. JP Chase is the world's biggest bank by market cap and one of the biggest companies of any kind. In 2023, they set a record for the most profits of any U.S. bank ever, $49.6 billion. It's no exaggeration to say that entire economies depend on this bank. JP played a crucial role in stopping the bleeding during the 2008 financial crisis.
The better we do here, the better it'll be for the United States economy.
And more recently stepped in to mitigate the damage from the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic. Dimon regularly speaks with prime ministers and presidents around the world, and there's been plenty of speculation he might run for office someday. All this translates into a great deal of power and influence.
You've built a bank that's $4 trillion in assets and counting. How big is too big?
I think the question is what works for consumers and industries and stuff like that. So, if you want to build a Boeing aircraft, you have to be big. You can pretend that you don't. If you want to do what JP Morgan does, we move $10 trillion of money around the world every day. We bank some of these companies in 30 countries. We bank countries. We bank the World Bank, the IMF. We bank the United States government. You have to be big. You can't do those things and be small. I applaud the small banks. We're the biggest bank, community banks and regional banks and stuff like that. And I understand, some of the stress they're under. We're trying to help. So it's not either or.
So going a little bigger picture now, you run the biggest bank in the world. You have our money. You've got world leaders on speed dial. That's a lot of power. How do you decide when and how to wield that power?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a lot of people on speed dial. So you say all that. Sometimes I think I'm just riding the Bronco and hanging on for dear life. I love what I do. I try to talk to everyone. I try to keep my mind open. One of the benefits from traveling the world, I was just in Mumbai and Switzerland and seeing clients. You learn a lot, and you try to make sure that you're doing a proper assessment of the world. That you're looking at the options. You're not like just saying we're going to do this. I look at it as part of our job to try to help countries do the best they can for their citizens. Mm. So we bank countries. We also advise them on skills and trade and economics. You look at our research, it's a lot around how does an economy run. So when you go to when I got back from Mumbai, we research 150 companies now or something like that. So we're educating the world about those companies. We're educating the world about the Indian economy. As we do that, we also educate the Indians about what works in their economy and what doesn't work. And those are important things to lift up society.
You've got this reputation as a sort of white knight for the economy. Do you ever feel pressure to come in with the save?
I feel a tremendous amount of pressure to do. Obviously, my family comes first, okay? But to do a great job for my company and our clients. I also feel a huge burden to do a good job for my country. So, when my country wants me to do something, and we talk all the time to, the senators and regulators, what can we do to make the system better, to lift up the country, lift up inner cities? We're trying to figure out how to make society better. And I do consider that part of our job.
You grew up talking finance at the kitchen table as a kid. Mm-hmm. What was it like growing up Jamie Dimon? What do you think prepared you for all this?
Well, I grew up in Jackson Heights, Queens, and my grandparents, 3 were Greek immigrants. One was born here. I don't think any of the 4 finished high school. There was a loud table, people arguing and stuff like that. But my parents my dad was a stockbroker, I was the only one who took interest in that, reading the paper, understanding it. I bought a stock when I was 12, 13, or 14. They didn't ask us to go.
We paid $10 billion a year in federal taxes. Over the last 5 years, we've given $600 million to organizations. This is a terrific company. And when I hear the constant vilification of corporate America, I personally don't understand it. And I would ask a lot of our folks in government to stop doing it, because I think it's just hurting our country at this point.
More crises would follow. In 2012, a rogue JP Morgan trader nicknamed the London Whale lost the company more than $6 billion, putting the harsh spotlight of scandal on Dimon and calling his leadership into question. But Dimon weathered it all, keeping the top job even as other top U.S. banks have gone through multiple CEOs. Along the way, he became a billionaire, a rarity among banking executives. Many attribute Dimon's success to what's known as the fortress balance sheet. Essentially, he takes the cautious approach, never getting so over-leveraged that the bank can't withstand a major unforeseen shock. The strategy has been criticized for leaving profits on the table, but it looks pretty smart when a crisis comes along.
Going way back, I used to do a presentation on financial crises, going back to those blowups in Ginnie Mae's, Penn Central, commercial paper, the 87 crash, the 90 recession, the 74 recession. And if you make a list of all those things, you realize, and I'm not making fun of it, they happen all the time. And the best preparation is, in our business, capital and liquidity, which Dodd-Frank improved. We already had a lot. Be prepared. You can't be prepared after the fact. You got to be prepared before the fact. So when I talk about risk management, it's always about the range of outcomes. Can we handle them? And beyond that, we talk about geopolitical crises, cyber. I put cyber high risk. You got to be prepared for that stuff. And it does happen, and it's going to surprise you one day. Just like, am I surprised if oil? Will I be surprised if oil goes to 150? I will not.
Yeah.
It can easily happen if a bunch of factors fall a certain way. So the best thing is be prepared for any business. When you think about risk, think about things that can go terribly wrong. Can you survive them? It could be technology, it could be government regulations, it could be literally the weather. If you're a restaurant, that might close you down. If you lose this week's business, you're out of business, you don't have enough cash. So you should think all that through.
Bill Gates once said, banking is necessary, banks are not. To what extent could AI or fintech replace traditional banks?
So I think, first of all, I remember him saying banks are dinosaurs. I spoke to him about it in 1997, and he was dead wrong. He probably agreed to that. But he's not wrong. The technology changes everything. And if anyone is complacent or arrogant or think that because you have a big position today, you're going to have a big position tomorrow, that's a mistake. But then you have to define, what is banking? Someone's going to have to hold the money. Someone's going to have to move the money. Someone's going to have to raise the money. Someone's going to have to do research around money. Those services will still be around. And hopefully we're doing it and using a lot of tech to do a better job at it. But I've always thought it's very possible that some tech thing disintermediates a piece of that. And I've been writing about big tech going to our business. We got fintech, but we also have big tech. And they will embed payment systems in there. Some are going to white label banks, kind of what Apple did. They have the right to do that. I'm not against that. I would be against unfair use of their position to dominate us in a business.
Well, Apple is going deeper into financial services.
No
Do you
question.
worry about the Bank of Apple?
Well, we're going to compete. So they have a tough competitor, but they hold money, move money. Yeah, they're a form of a competitor. We also partner with them, but I'm very used to partnering and competing with lots of people. So.
Existential threat?
ओहो, लाइट चली गई। पहले पुरानी मशीन बंद हो जाती और फिर मच्छर की वजह से बच्चा उठ जाता।
लेकिन अब ये परेशानी नहीं। पुराने गुड नाइट के मुकाबले नया गुड नाइट बना है ऐसे एडवांस्ड फार्मूला से जो चले बिजली जाने के 2 घंटे बाद तक।
नया गुड नाइट लिक्विड।
Move out with my baby on the side. Move out with my baby, got a style.
Seatbelt, please.
And we go right, baby, it's a long way home.
The new Extreme 160 R4V, the fastest 160cc. Challenge the extreme.
I don't think it's an existential threat, but I think if we were complacent about it, yes.
Still, as with most industries, an AI revolution is coming for finance. The question is, how much about banking will change? Some predict AI will enable us to put our money on autopilot, telling you where to invest, planning your retirement, and even filing your taxes.
I know you mentioned ChatGPT in your annual letter. Have you tried it?
Yeah. If I had my phone, I'd show you.
What do you use it for?
I just ask it questions.
Like what?
I don't remember. What's Emily Chang going to ask me?
You've got a top-notch group investigating AI. What are they up to? What's the next level of finance you think AI can unlock?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing is that AI is real. We already have thousands of people doing it. Top scientists around the world, Manuel Velosa, who ran Carnegie Mellon Machine Learning. And it's a living, breathing thing. So people want to answer, what's it going to do? It's a living, breathing thing. It's going to change. There are going to be all different types of models and different types of tools and technology. But the way to think about it for us is every single process, so errors, trading, hedging, research, every app, every database, you're going to be applying AI. So it might be as a co-pilot. It might be to replace humans. Like, AI is doing all the equity hedging for us for the most part. It's idea generation, it's large language models, it's note-taking while you're talking to someone, and while it's taking notes, it may actually say to you that, here's the thing of interest the client might be interested in. All error, all customer service, it's a little bit of everything.
But it is going to replace some jobs.
Of course, yeah. But I look, folks, people have to take a deep breath, okay? Technology's always replaced jobs. Your children will live to 100 and not have cancer because of technology. And literally, they'll probably be working 3.5 days a week. So technology's done unbelievable things for mankind. But, planes crash, pharmaceuticals get misused. There are negatives. This one, the biggest negative in my view, is AI being used by bad people to do bad things. Think of cyber. But, the fact, and I do think, eventually have legal guardrails around it. It's kind of hard to do because it's new, but it will add a huge value. And, for JP Morgan, if it replaces jobs, we hope to redeploy people.
So is there going to be a point where I can turn to ChatJPM and say, I have 30 years, or I want to get rich quick, what should I do with my money?
Well, the rich quick, I hope it tells you that you're crazy. But we, in some ways, can do a little bit already today. And, usually, if you look at like wealth plans that we have, which I think are quite good, they have a lot of AI embedded in that, or analytics embedded in that. And soon it'll have more AI. All that AI is going to do is know more about you, learn more about you, look at patterns, and look at successful things in the past. And so AI will be a huge aid to things like that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So do you see like a finance super app in our future, or?
Yeah, you already have that a little bit. So 10 years ago, I took the people who ran retail, Gordon Smith, and a whole team. I said, you're getting an airplane and you're going to China. And they said, why? We're American. I said, go to China. And they went to Ping An and Tencent and WeChat and Alipay and all that. And they had all the super apps. I made them come back and do a big chart of super apps, all the services they do.
What they do is a whole heck of a lot. WeChat, for example, combines text messaging, a social network, and a widely used mobile payment system, and has over 1.2 billion active users. The kind of ubiquity most American companies can only dream of.
So I think in America, it won't be a super app. It'll be, I'm gonna call them mini super apps. So you can already do a lot of stuff with us around money, but that's why we do travel. It's an adjacency. It's not just a credit card. Now we want to offer you great travel and great hotels and great restaurants. And so there are all these adjacencies on everything we do that will be are tech-driven and will be increasingly AI-driven.
What's your biggest AI fear?
Well, I think Henry Kissinger, Eric Schmidt wrote a book about, if it gets used in weapons. But, and that obviously could be terrifying if it's deciding who the enemy is. And then, obviously it's going to be used in cyber. Bad guys will use AI. And I think we need guardrails. No one knows exactly what they should be yet, but it's not going to stop bad guys. So we got to think through the guardrails here. You want to have plenty of innovation. You need guardrails, like, maybe it'll tell you at the bottom of something this is generated by AI, but the bad guys still use it. And the question is how I'm a little concerned about that.
While AI is changing the technology of banking, geopolitics is creating a different kind of disruption. With tensions between powerful countries like the US, Russia, and China reaching a boiling point, there are signs the economic ties that bind the world are starting to fray. Diamond, for his part, strikes a tone of cautious optimism about current events, but warns that we're living in a very dangerous time. Our conversation took place before the recent outbreak of conflict in the Middle East, which he said will create ripple effects that extend far beyond the region.
Where's China on the list of risks?
When I say geopolitical, that's the big one. It's the thread from Ukraine, oil and gas, food, migration, all our relationships, the most important one being China. That is the most important for the future of the world. And obviously Ukraine is affecting it. And in fact, it's very hard to see really positive outcomes with China until the Ukraine war is resolved. Hopefully, whether Ukraine is to say they have a victory of some sort.
You've said you're worried about another Trump presidency. How worried?
We need good American leadership. And I think that we need to explain to people why this is so important for the world. And so there's a little bit of this, America first, and, no American president is going to say America second. But what we need to explain is why Ukraine is important to us and why American security relies on global security and why our allies rely on that. And if they can't rely on America, they will have to rely on someone else. And so I just think it's very important. Bob Gates writes in his book, The Exercise of Power, about the symphony of power. And it's all the soft things, not the military, which we've overused, but diplomacy, development finance, education, communication, and obviously economic, trade, investment, all those things. And I think we need to do a better job in that.
You're revered for your long-term view. So I'd just like to tick through a few topics quickly and get a quick sort of one-sentence long-term view. What's your long view on China?
It'll be okay, but we need really good American leadership to do that. And don't worry, they're not a 10-foot giant. They have a lot of issues. America's got a lot of strains. I like the fact the American government's talking to them constantly now.
Crypto.
If you mean crypto like Bitcoin, I've always said it's a fraud.
No hope for it.
Well, if they think they're a currency, there's no hope for it. It's a Ponzi scheme. It's a public, decentralized Ponzi. If it's a crypto coin that can do something, like a smart contract, that has value. There will be smart contracts, and blockchain works. So to the extent crypto is accessing certain blockchain things, yeah, that might have some value.
American leadership.
The most important thing for the world in the next 100 years. Warren Buffett would tell you one of the great things about America is our constant resiliency, ability to adjust. I mean, we adjusted pretty quickly to bad COVID and then getting out of COVID, and American leadership moves pretty quickly, and autocratic leadership gets stasis. So you got to look at, sometimes democracy is messy, but it also allows change.
Dimon is 68, and the question of succession is looming. In 2021, he received a bonus to stay on for another 5 years. And while various JP Morgan executives are rumored to be in the running to replace him, nothing official has been announced. Given the success of Dimon's 18-year run, no one is particularly eager for him to move on. And for the moment, he shows no signs of slowing down.
What advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
You have to work hard. I mean, that doesn't, but work smart. A lot of people they waste so much time and they don't think carefully. And there's that great quote, "I'm sorry I wrote you such a long letter. I didn't have time to write a short one." That's respect to people. You get your thoughts together. Have a process in place for decision making. Don't allow yourself to become weaponized, at all. And don't have it, to the extent you have a temper, it works against you. You always have to end up apologizing. Have a thought process around things that are complicated, and you'll get better over life. You don't have to answer everything all at once. I tell all the people at JP Morgan, everyone should take care on their own, their mind, their body, their spirit, their soul, their friends, their family, their health. They have to do that. It's part of their life. If you mess that up, it makes everything else particularly hard. So, and I heard a great speech from a woman once who said, "You can have it all, you just can have it all at the same time."
I like that advice. Yeah. What else do you want to accomplish in the world, aside from making your bank succeed?
Most important, family. And I have 3 wonderful kids, 2 wonderful son-in-laws, 7 great grandkids. That is the most important. Mm-hmm. Second most important is my country, the United States of America. I'm a red-blooded, full-throated, free enterprise American patriot. And don't misunderstand that. And so therefore that is a big effort of mine personally, and my company stands behind that to the extent we should. And then inside the company, I just hope people say, we're gonna miss the son of a bitch when he's gone. And he made the world a better place, and he created opportunity and for all of us and our clients.
You're sure you're not running for office?
I'm pretty sure.
I just spoke to some friends who left the US who said if you ran, they'd come back.
I got 4 more votes.
ओ भाई साहब, लाइन में आ जाओ। मैं लाइन में नहीं रुकता।
रैपिडो बाइक वाली टैक्सी सबसे सेक्सी, बाइक वाली टैक्सी सबसे सेक्सी।
इस बटर के साथ तो और भी टेस्टी है।
क्यों? क्योंकि टेस्ट के साथ ये इम्यूनिटी भी बनाए रखे। नया न्यूट्रालाइट दूध शक्ति प्रोबायोटिक बटर स्प्रेड जो सपोर्ट करे इम्यूनिटी एंड इज सो वेरी टेस्टी। न्यूट्रालाइट दूध शक्ति प्रोबायोटिक बटर स्प्रेड।
I'm Jeff Bezos.
What is your claim to fame?
I'm the founder of Amazon.com.
From the award-winning producers of The Facebook Dilemma.
Richest guy in the world.
Frontline investigates Amazon.
Amazon taking over the world a good thing?
Questioning those who run the company
What would you say to someone who feels as though humans are increasingly being treated like robots?
That's not the experience that I had in setting it up.
And those no longer there.
Most people would assume there is a pretty high safety standard on Amazon.
And that assumption would be incorrect.
The tools are not what I call battle tested.
We're asking if Amazon is a monopoly.
The question for the democracy is, are we okay with one company essentially winning capitalism?
How do you and Jeff think about the call to break you guys up?
Simply because the company's been successful doesn't mean it's somehow too big.
Now on Frontline.
Domination was very much the idea.
Amazon Empire.
Jeff Bezos has already conquered the retail frontier. Now he's got a plan to colonize the final.
Bezos is laying out his plans for colonizing space.
Bezos is known for going big, and now he's literally shooting for the moon.
In May of 2019, Jeff Bezos, the richest person on the planet, unveiled his latest invention.
This is Blue Moon. It's time to go back to the moon, this time to stay.
Jeff has said over and over again that the most important work he's doing is work in space. What he's built with Amazon is really important and really interesting, and it's revolutionized commerce. But it's only revolutionized commerce.
Bezos' plan is to chart a new course for the future of humanity.
Manufactured worlds rotated to create artificial gravity with centrifugal force. These are very large structures, miles on end, and they hold 1 million people or more each.
It's an idea he's had since he was a teenager.
This is me in high school, and I want to highlight this quote: "The Earth is finite, and if the world economy and population is to keep expanding, space is the only way to go." I still believe that.
The way Jeff Bezos sees it is that consumerism is an example of how today's society lives better than our parents did and our grandparents. And he wants, future generations to continue to have an increasingly better lifestyle.
These are beautiful. People are going to want to live here.
Bezos unveiled his extraterrestrial plans at a time of growing concern about the empire he's built here on Earth.
Amazon is the great disruptor, from books to retail to grocery stores.
For more than 25 years, Jeff Bezos has been disrupting and transforming almost every aspect of our modern lives.
Once you start connecting the dots, you see that Amazon is building all of the invisible infrastructure for our futures.
Amazon announced a healthcare partnership.
Amazon is helping the CIA build a secure cloud.
How much of the internet do you run?
It's a good question. It's a lot, though.
But in recent years, Amazon and Bezos have come under scrutiny for their aggressive tactics and expanding power.
Everything that is admirable about Amazon is also something that we should fear about it.
For the past year, we've been investigating how Jeff Bezos built his empire and at what cost.
And so think about this. Big things start small.
Jeff Bezos' empire has its roots not in Silicon Valley, but on Wall Street. That's where the young Princeton graduate went to work in the early 1990s at a secretive hedge fund called D.E. Shaw.
David Shaw was the one who revolutionized Wall Street by introducing data. And I think Jeff really embraced that idea that, hey, if you have data, ultimately you win.
One of the things that David Shaw asked Jeff Bezos to do was to go and investigate new businesses, and in particular, this new thing in the early 90s called the World Wide Web.
We all know that a communications revolution is underway in this country.
What is the internet?
It's sort of the mother of all networks.
It's information highways.
It's kind of like your remote control to the world.
Bezos was quick to see the untapped potential of the new digital landscape and was determined to get in on it.
I came across the startling statistic that web usage was growing at 2,300% a year. So I decided I would try and find a business plan that made sense in the context of that growth. And I picked books as the first best product to sell online. Because books are incredibly unusual in one respect, and that is that there are more items in the book category than there are items in any other category by far. So when you have that many items, you can literally build a store online that couldn't exist any other way.
The store he was imagining didn't exist, so he decided to build it himself.
The reaction to Jeff's idea to start selling books on the internet was pretty incredulous, from a lot of the people close to him. His mom tried to convince him to just do it at night or over the weekends. She didn't want to see him give up his job.
Jeff called and he told me that he and Mackenzie were quitting their jobs and they were moving to Seattle and starting a company. I said, great, well, what are you gonna do? He said, we're gonna sell books. I said, nice. He said, on the internet. I said, oh. Jeff, why will anybody buy anything from you? And he said, well, we're gonna have more books than anybody else.
One of the first names Bezos considered for his new website was Relentless.com.
Why relentless?
Relentless meant we move on no matter what. He ultimately obviously decided that Relentless wasn't quite the right fit. Amazon, Earth's largest river, was. Amazon means gigantic.
In terms of relentlessness, so stopping at nothing, is that an apt description of Jeff?
No. It's not that Jeff stops at nothing. It's that when Jeff sets his mind on a goal that he thinks he can achieve, he won't stop until he's proven wrong or until he achieves it.
Jeff and Mackenzie had rented a house in Bellevue, and then we moved to a small second-floor office in the south part of Seattle.
Shel Kappan was Amazon employee number one of 9 former Amazon insiders who agreed to talk on camera.
What the company is now was nowhere in my wildest imagination. Nowhere. So the fact that it could have the kind of position in the world that it has now, I had no clue.
In July 1995, Amazon.com went live.
It was an incredible novelty. It was tiny and obscure. And it's very hard to imagine, but the entire universe that Amazon now dominates did not exist.
Amazon.com. This virtual shop claims to be the world's largest bookstore.
It didn't take long for Bezos' vision to prove prescient.
What makes us different is vast selection, convenience. We deliver right to the desktop. If our catalog were printed on paper, it would be the size of 7 New York City phone books.
The company quickly outgrew the garage and soon had more than 50 employees. In 1996, James Marcus applied to be number 55.
There was a very palpable excitement in the air at this place. And of course, at this point, Jeff Bezos was the first person to interview every prospective employee. So I was ushered into his office. He wanted to see how fast you were on your feet. He also always wanted to know your SAT scores.
You want to know your SAT scores?
Every time, yes.
How old were you at the time?
I was 36 or 37.
This is the original sign that I made for Amazon.com. Blue spray paint on white poster board.
Jeff wasn't a figure out of folklore at that point. He was not the wealthiest man in the world.
Here's my computer, Amazon.com, up on the screen. Hello, Jeff Bezos.
He was a small, nondescript, sandy-haired man sitting at a desk with quite a large and eruptive laugh. But he wasn't threatening. He was a normal guy to a sort of amazing extent.
HAL 9000 hat is very important. Hal and I share a birthday. We're both born on January 12th.
It belied, an enormous Napoleonic ambition.
One of the people I really like, Thomas Edison, here's a model of his original light bulb. He is famous for saying 1% inspiration, 99% perspiration. It turns out ideas are the easy part. Execution is everything.
Domination was on Jeff's mind from the beginning. One of his sort of second-in-command people said to me, you have to understand that Jeff wants to sell many more things than books. And Jeff's idea is that in the near-distant future, you could buy a kayak from Amazon. And after you bought the kayak, you could figure out good places to kayak and buy travel services from Amazon. So those ambitions were very clear, and this was very early on. But he was clearly thinking in those terms from the get-go.
How did that ring to you at the time?
A little bit exciting and a little bit nutty.
Amazon.com. Very good website. You should really try it.
If you signed on to work at a kind of futuristic bookstore, and the guy who owned it was suddenly talking about selling, every object in the universe, you just weren't sure how seriously to take it.
Though his public image was often unserious,
That was awesome!
inside the company, Bezos was a hard-charging manager relentlessly focused on the principle that would make Amazon one of the most trusted brands in the world. The customer always comes first.
This culture of customer obsession, obsessive focus on customer, obsesses over our customers, totally obsessing over the customer experience.
We used to call it customer ecstasy. It means building, delivering, focusing on your customer. And we did it, in the very, very early days at every stage.
Jennifer Cast was there in the early days and is one of 6 top Amazon executives the company put forward to speak to us.
Customer obsession was our North Star. And so, it was a place where we knew we were a part of something that was new, the internet. There was an excitement that we were doing something that hadn't been done before. It was exhilarating. We were all aligned around building for customers.
Hey, you guys.
I've heard there was an empty chair that would often be put at meetings.
Yeah.
Who was in the empty chair?
Yeah, so that empty chair was there to remind us all to understand the customer, have empathy for the customer, understand the details of the customer experience. The customer isn't there. We have to bring forward the voice of the customer.
Thank you for calling Amazon.com.
And Bezos quickly learned that in this new online world, he could understand exactly how customers were behaving.
All orders do need to be placed online, but I'd be happy.
It was made clear from the beginning that data collection was also one of Amazon's businesses. All customer behavior that flowed through the site was recorded and tracked. And that itself was a valuable commodity.
Okay, have you visited our website?
We could track how a customer navigated through the site. So we could see what you looked at. We could also see what you paused at. We could see what you put in your basket but didn't order. We could see what you put in your basket and did order. So that's when we started realizing, man, this is rich. This is rich, rich, rich. And so we've used it for everything.
What do you do with that information?
That's the data that allows us to predict or try to predict what books that you would like that you haven't discovered yet.
Bezos treated the site as a laboratory where he studied customer behavior along with his chief scientist, Andreas Weigand.
I was shocked to see how predictable people are. If you take the time of the day into account, if you take maybe when they were last on the site, how long they were on the site last time, how long they're on the site today, you know what they're falling for.
Whoever owns, collects the data, if you have access to it and rights to data, then you are king. It's all about the data. Everything.
One of the most fascinating kind of tools we have at our disposal is the ability to do active experiments. It's kind of this huge laboratory.
We did not think about it as exploiting. We thought about helping people make better decisions.
I was starting to feel that that was less respectful toward the consumer, who was, after all, supposed to be our god, the person whose ecstasy was our very reason for being. And it was closer to getting a cow into a milking stall and extracting as many pails as possible during each visit. And that felt a little more unsavory. But that was the business of Amazon.
Amazon has added 880,000 new customers.
While Bezos was using these insights to bring more and more customers into Amazon,
The number of customers who use the website has increased fourfold.
there was one thing he hadn't done yet.
The company's never made a profit.
That's right.
Now, why? How does it? Why? How does that? Why?
Seems like a new math, doesn't it?
Bezos would spend years losing money trying to beat his competition. And he convinced investors to go along with it.
One of Jeff Bezos' greatest accomplishments has been his ability to get Wall Street to accept the fact that for 20-some years, Amazon wasn't going to be very profitable. And that's okay because they're building infrastructure that will create huge opportunities for them to gain scale and gain customers and gain business.
He spelled it out in a letter to shareholders after the company first went public. It's all about the long term, he wrote, rather than short-term profits or Wall Street reactions.
And he essentially says, we're going to forego profits in order to take market share. That our strategy is to lose money, which enables us then to put other companies out of business who can't afford to lose money.
That strategy wouldn't sit well with critics like Stacy Mitchell, who advocates for small businesses.
In essence, at the very beginning, he's signaling to shareholders, I have a strategy to monopolize the market, and that's going to reward you, but it's going to be far down the road. And will you come along with me? And they said yes.
Investors also recognized Bezos' essential advantage over physical stores, which had to charge their customers sales tax, unlike online businesses.
So not collecting sales tax gave Amazon a big leg up over bricks and mortar retailers. And that was central to their early strategy of gaining market share as quickly as they can.
What booksellers were saying to me is that this is driving my customers to Amazon. They'll come into the store, they'll browse, they find what they want, but then they'll go buy it on Amazon because they can save that sales tax.
So it was a very irksome early big issue for the book vendors. First of all, they were kind of the canaries in the mine, so to speak, and then lots of other retailers.
Amazon has added thousands of warehouse workers and 3 million square feet of space.
Amazon's sales tax advantage would be central to its success as it expanded beyond books into other products.
And we have a fantastic selection of things you can look at. Electronics, and then, of course, toys. Yeah, thank you. Here is we've got the friendly Pokemon. This is more than 10 times the selection that you will find in a typical physical world software store.
But Bezos was still a long way from his goal of Amazon being the place where you could buy everything online. And he saw a way to achieve it.
Amazon could soon become the Walmart of the internet.
There were thousands of businesses eager to sell online. Bezos offered them a way to do it.
Amazon is transforming itself from an online bookstore to an online mall.
He transformed Amazon into a retail platform where anyone could sell their goods to his customers, and invited thousands of other businesses to be a part of it.
It's the easiest place for anybody, small or large, who wants to set up shop online, to sell online, because they can access our 12 million plus customers. Anybody, all comers.
We're talking about hundreds of thousands of companies with literally tens of millions of products.
Name brand stores started selling on Bezos' platform, and so did tens of thousands of small entrepreneurs.
Everyone knew Amazon.com. The only people that knew superduperhoops.com were the ones that were searching to buy a basketball hoop and saw our name on an advertisement. To us, it was really a no-brainer. We knew that we would, increase our sales. First year, we did 100,000. Next year, we did 1 million. We did 2 million, 4 million. We were doubling every year in the early days.
It was great for the companies, and even greater for Jeff Bezos.
Amazon has become the most recognizable name in e-commerce.
Not only would he take a cut of everything other businesses sold, he'd also keep his own store on the platform, competing against everyone else in the marketplace he owned and controlled.
He owns the main street. He has the main street real estate. Not just one building on a corner, the entire main street.
How Amazon would wield its power over the online marketplace would eventually become a question for government regulators. But early on, there were indications. The first to see them were book publishers.
Amazon took over a large market share of the publishing industry very, very fast. They were very quickly in a position to demand concessions. You know, I think that was a moment where publishers started to realize, oh, wait a minute, like they're our partner, but they now have the beginnings of a boot on our windpipe.
Inside the company, they had launched a strategy that some called the Gazelle Project, because they'd heard Bezos wanted them to pursue publishers the way a cheetah pursues a sickly gazelle.
Well, you don't go after the strongest. It's like the cheetah. The cheetah looks for the weak, looks for the sick, looks for the small. That's what you go for. So don't start with, number 1 publisher. Start with number 7 publisher, and then number 6 publisher. And by the time you get to number 3, 2, and 1, the noise has gotten back to them. They're going to know this is coming, and chances are you may be able to settle that without a full-on war.
We were just this little mom and pop publishing company, publishing poetry books and translated fiction.
In the early 2000s, the number of books Dennis Johnson was selling on Amazon had been rising steadily. Then one day, he got a phone call.
Our distributor called us up to talk about our Amazon contract. And he said, I went out to dinner last night with Amazon. It was like going out to dinner with the Godfather. They want a kickback. And that's the word he used, kickback. And he said they wanted 4% more of our sales.
Was that unusual?
In our experience, it was totally unprecedented. Yes.
Randy Miller ran the European book team and says he saw nothing wrong with Amazon's tough tactics to challenge publishers on prices and profit margins.
In order to bring them into line, we would actually take them out of automated merchandising, take their prices up to list price. We would put references on the product page, their product page, saying, you want this book on this topic for a way cheaper price? Click here. And we'd send them to whoever we thought their worst competitor was. That was how Amazon forced their vendors to comply. But that's an old Walmart trick. I mean, it wasn't like Amazon created that, and it made a difference. And Jeff kind of got excited about it.
When Dennis Johnson still refused to give in to Amazon's terms, he says the buy button on all Melville House books suddenly disappeared, making it impossible for customers to purchase them on Amazon.
I mean, this is the company that referred to little publishers like me as wounded gazelles, I believe. That's how they think. That's how he thought from the beginning. And we eventually had to pay what at the time I called a bribe. And our attitude toward Amazon was, render unto Caesar that which is Caesar's, and carry on as best you can.
Jeff Bezos may say that Amazon comes along and has given publishers like yourself access to a huge distribution channel for your books. Has Amazon been good for your business?
Well, absolutely they have. Any bookseller that sells our books is good for our business. So I'm not complaining that Amazon is selling our books. I'm just complaining of the way that their tactics are hurting the industry I love.
In addition to granting interviews, Amazon responded to written questions. Regarding Dennis Johnson's characterizations, it told us, Amazon disagrees with this account.
Were you uncomfortable with that sort of ruthlessness ever?
Well, no, because I was in retail. I mean, people think that's ruthless. I looked at some people at Amazon, wow, that's kind of mean. And I'm like, oh, a retailer and a supplier having a disagreement? Stop the presses. It happens all the time. I mean, you've got finite margin, and somebody's going to have to give. And a lot of times Amazon wasn't the one giving.
Kindle is a purpose-built reading device.
The tension between Amazon and book publishers would ramp up even further with the unveiling of the Kindle, which helped the industry transition to the digital age, but gave Amazon more power to set prices lower.
And new releases are only $9.99.
Around that time, Barry Lynn, an advocate for broad antitrust enforcement, was growing increasingly concerned by what he was hearing from publishers.
If the door was open, the publisher would say, hey, you know, Amazon, they're just a terrific customer. They're our biggest customer. They buy the most books. They sell the most books. We love them. And you close the door and they say, Amazon is destroying our business model. They're destroying our business. They have way too much power. We must do something about them.
Lynn wanted publishers to speak up publicly and thought federal antitrust regulators might investigate whether Amazon was a monopoly, illegally abusing its market dominance in anti-competitive ways.
And they'd say, no way, I'm not going to talk about Amazon in public. I'm not talking about them on Capitol Hill. They will take retribution against me.
To which you responded,
well, that's why we have to do something about it.
Jennifer Cast ran Amazon's books division in its formative years.
We've had a difficult time in some ways getting publishers to talk to us on camera about Amazon. In part, it seems the reason is that they're afraid. How do you react to that publishers find it uncomfortable to talk about Amazon publicly?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
I haven't been in your shoes. I'm sure they have. I mean, if you're saying that they don't talk negatively about us, I mean, I know they have a lot of good things to say about us. You know, I don't know why they wouldn't speak their minds. We certainly value speaking our minds.
There is this well-known anecdote about cheetahs and gazelles, this gazelle program. Do you know about that?
I don't.
We've talked to former Amazonians about it, where Jeff had said we should basically try to negotiate with book publishers and try to get better terms and treat the smaller publishers as a cheetah would go after a wounded gazelle.
I didn't hear the cheetah and gazelle example, but what we were looking for was people that were willing to move away from the old model of bricks and mortar to a new model, which was, you know, a virtual store that had many different types of opportunities to present their books to customers.
I want to talk a little bit about how we think about innovation at Amazon.com.
Amazon would begin to accumulate even more power in 2005 when Bezos quietly rolled out a revolutionary new program, Amazon Prime.
Now they have something called the Prime Shipping Program, where for roughly
Amazon Prime, we only launched this a week ago. You pay $79 a year and you get 2-day shipping for free.
It was a risky bet, and it paid off.
The linchpin, or the glue, if you will, and probably the seminal moment in Amazon's business history was the introduction of what has become the most successful membership program in history, and that's Prime.
Many of you in this audience will already be Amazon Prime members. Bless you. This is very much appreciated.
Eventually, more than 150 million people would sign up for the free shipping, a tremendous expense for Amazon. But to Bezos, it was worth it.
The Prime program at Amazon is one of the most important drivers of Amazon's growth. When you go on and you look to buy a product and it's available in 2 days, delivered to your door, anywhere in the country, that Amazon Prime program becomes a mechanism that keeps bringing you back as a customer to keep buying and keep searching for new products on Amazon.
2-day delivery anywhere in the country was a big promise for a company that, at the time, had less than 10 warehouses. So Bezos went on a building spree. Across the country, Amazon warehouses began to spring up, filled with millions of products being sold on Bezos' platform. He'd call them fulfillment centers, and they'd create hundreds of thousands of jobs in places hard hit by the Great Recession.
10% of Pennsylvania residents unemployed. The job market is in complete disarray.
Like Allentown, Pennsylvania.
At that time, it was tremendous news that an employer was coming and actually opening a facility and hiring people versus, gutting half the staff.
Spencer Soper was a business reporter for the Allentown Morning Call when Amazon opened in the area in 2010. He began hearing stories about working in the warehouse.
People are basically in this big sprawling warehouse that's stocked with goods in very random fashion. And they have scanners that tell them which things to get. And people are walking maybe 10, 15 miles a day. People just kind of crisscrossing this big warehouse all day long.
As workers told him about the punishing pace to meet the daily quota of packages and the intense heat, Soper and his colleagues started to investigate further.
People really felt like Amazon was playing fast and loose with their health.
Soper discovered there had been numerous complaints to authorities at the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA.
They actually had a complaint from an emergency room doctor who called their hotline one day saying, listen, you might want to check out this Amazon place. I've had people parading through my emergency room to be treated for heat stress. There was a security guard who worked in the facility who sent a complaint to OSHA saying that he saw pregnant women suffering heat stress in the facility. And so there's just these red flags right and left.
After an investigation, OSHA said Amazon needed to keep the temperatures in the warehouses lower. In a statement at the time, the company said it installed new industrial air conditioning and pledged that worker safety was its #1 priority.
Amazon is shrewd business people. Shrewd business people know when they have leverage. And when you're the only shop hiring people in town, you can push them a lot harder than you can when they've got alternatives.